Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We're so excited. We have Dr. Sue Morter joining us today, and she's an expert in so many of the topics that we love, including energy work and vibration. And we're going to speak a little bit about the heart today, too. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with some heart coherence?
Yes. Before we turn it over to Sue, we're going to dive into the heart. So if everybody could focus your attention in the area of your heart, if it helps, you can put your hand on your heart and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Try a pace of 5 seconds on the in-breath, 5 seconds on the out-breath, in and out through the heart. As you're breathing in and out through the heart, just give thanks for your heart, for the gift of your heart. Feel the blood pumping in your heart. Feel the strength of your heart.
And next, still breathing in and out of your heart, send some love to a specific person by really sending them some goodwill. So pick someone specific and send out good intentions, wishes, everything that would be good in their life to them from your heart.
As you continue to breathe in and out through your heart, just think about a place in your life that makes you feel a deep state of ease. This could be a place in nature, like the ocean or a forest, or it could maybe be at a favorite family member's house. Just wherever it brings you ease, breathe in that ease into your heart with each breath in and out.
And continuing that breath, send a beam of energy, pink light, to anyone who's in your house, near you, on your street, and then expand that light that you're sending out from your heart to your town, your state, your country, and then imagine it spreading over the whole world. And then bring that beam of light back into your chest, feeling love for yourself.
All right. Welcome, Dr. Sue Morter.
Oh, wow. Well, that works.
Yeah.
It does. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about you so we can get to know you. What's your background? How did you come into energy work, holistic healing?
Sure. So I came upon energy work very honestly. I was born into a family. My father was a pioneer in energy medicine. He was working with energy medicine in the late 60s and the early 70s in a way that was to align this type of energy healing with chiropractic. He was a chiropractor, and he wanted to know why some people were holding their adjustments and others were coming back completely back in the place they were in before, and what was going on. And so he realized that it was much more than chiropractic. It was much more than just moving a vertebra off of a pinched nerve type of thing, and that there was something much larger happening. And he began to work with how thoughts impact the nervous system, which impacts the musculature, which pulls the bone out of place or holds it in place. And he was off to the races when he started to truly understand that connection. So in the mid 70s, and as I was, old enough to be in conversation, our dinner table conversation became about quantum science, because it was this new science that was coming into the journals for doctors to be reading. And he was aware of the fact that the energy is everything, that everything is energy, and our thoughts and our emotional states and our come from, our disposition was truly enhancing how, or affecting, controlling even how the nervous system was functioning. And then the chain reaction that would then ultimately lead to tight muscles or relaxed muscles, organs and glands that functioned properly or didn't, that all of it was this long continuum that was all connected, tracing it all the way back to consciousness. And so it's been an amazing ride for me to grow up inside of that reality, that our thoughts create our reality, our ability to heal ourselves exists in the power of our own thoughts and our own disposition, our own loving space. And this is why I loved that you opened up with such a beautiful heart-based orientation, because this is what humanity is missing. And it is definitely what we have to add into the equation of quantum science today in order to truly reap the benefits of what science is teaching us about epigenetics and how things, work in terms of little antennas on the surface of our cells that pick up the vibrational frequency of our environment and then report that information inside the cell, determining what neurotransmitters or what hormones we create and generate on an ongoing basis. There's a big missing link inside of all of that information. And it is what truly allows for a sustainable transformation. And it has to do with the quality of our disposition, the quality of why we're doing what we're doing and how we're going about it. And when love is in the mix, everything begins to open up into an entirely different reality. So I opened a clinic. I was treating patients, doing all that. I started having huge transcendental openings through meditation. Recognizing multidimensional versions of self and who we are and what it is and what's going on here. And so I've spent the last close to 30 years really working with student patients and then clients and now students and doctors. And I've been teaching this work for a long, long time. And it's such a joy to see it coming to the forefront of our humanity now in such a beautiful way.
That is such a cool upbringing. So you're basically like bathed in this awesome surrounding of just pure
Yeah, I can vouch for it. I've never gone to the doctor to get an antibiotic for an ailment. I've never done that. Never had that type of prescription process in my life ever. I've only ever used energy medicine for healing and then into transformation and awakening. Truly, my work has become as much about healing. It's also about transformation, transcendental awakening, enlightenment, and embodiment, and truly understanding that we are more than a five sensory, being that's just here trying to survive in our window while we're in a physical body. So it's been quite an amazing ride and a great joy.
Can you talk about a time where you had to use energy medicine on your own healing for your own?
Absolutely. I've used energy medicine for healing migraine headaches. I've healed a scoliosis in my body using energy medicine and breathwork techniques and anchoring consciousness in the core of the body, which is kind of foundational to what I'm teaching people. I've used energy medicine in healing fractures in my arms instead of getting casted. I've worked with using the energy to route the healing in a way that allows for us to mend and repair and even further develop further than we had on our own accord, such as the scoliosis that I was born with. My spine never, even growing up in chiropractic and all of the work that I was affiliated with or associated with, acclimated to, I still hadn't learned how to use the energy myself to heal such deeply internal, components to life. Prior to that, I had used energy medicine techniques for depression or for anxiety or for those kinds of things to understand how to use the mind to help serve the mind. But I then became aware that there's something greater than just the use of our mind, that we can capture and steward and truly allow that to be serving inside and expanding our physical our physical capacity for self-healing and further developing. So I'm kind of never not using energy medicine to heal something in my life. I'm kind of never not, because that's all I know to do. And that I know to do that, allows me to constantly be in a state of not only healing, catching up from something that's gotten behind or an injury or something along those lines, but also to further my awareness of who and what we are and what our human potential truly is. And so I think everyone should be using it all the time, not just when we get into trouble and we turn to something like a quick fix, but to truly be living and fostering these ways of being as a baseline of life. I think that human potential is supposed to be being lived into like that every day. So there's my long answer to your simple question.
I love it.
This might be sort of a big question, but while I have someone who's knowledgeable, I'd love to hear you talk about what quantum science is, what bioenergetics means. And I love that you said you talk about how to use your gut feelings to navigate those worlds.
Yes. So quantum science is the study of particles that are smaller than what we can see, even with the microscope, the regular traditional microscope. When the electron microscope was invented, we found that the tiniest things that we thought existed, which were atoms, were actually made of lots of tinier parts. And so the subatomic, meaning smaller than atoms, parts of matter, all the way down to where matter and energy come together. So here's how we have to think of it. Everything is energy. The chair that you're sitting in right now is energy. The screen everybody is watching is energy. The sound waves that they're hearing this, if they're driving down the road and listening to this instead, it's all energy. Their thoughts are energy. Your health condition is a state of energy. Everything is that. And so physical matter is compressed energy. So here's what we do. We take energy and we compress it and we create chairs and computers and so forth. So you have to look around. Everything is energy. It's vibrating at different frequencies. So there's a place where that energy that we're compressing is no longer invisible. It starts to become visible energy. And right there is where quantum science is studying and helping people to understand the way that we can influence our physical bodies, our physical lives, our physical worlds by the power of our thought. Because when we study those particles down to the tiniest degree, we get down to photons, little packets of energy, and they can't really tell if this little packet of energy is energy or if it's a packet, if it's like gathered as mass. And so when they set up the equipment to determine, is it energy or is it mass? The answer is yes. Okay. Because if they set up the equipment to test if it's physical mass, it shows up as physical mass. And that same photon, if they set up the equipment to test to see if it's an energy wave, it's an energy wave. And so they realize that, oh my gosh, the scientist is having an influence on what's going on here. If we're intending to see this, that's what we see. And if we're intending to see this, that's what we see. And so the implications of this were huge for science because, it's like it's black or white. And quantum science is showing us it's black and white. It just depends on who's looking, right? It depends on where you're coming from. It's full spectrum. It's gray and every shade of the rainbow as well. So the significance of all this is it really started to sit down and say, make us sit down and say, okay, I'm responsible for my reality. I'm responsible for what I'm perceiving and what I'm turning things into. And the stories that I'm writing are creating the way that these photons gather. Because when we focus in a certain way, the photons follow thought. They do what we're thinking about. If we can create a vacuum and just suck everything out of it and put a few randomly placed photons in there, when we think into the vacuum, the photons move. We can take our DNA and place it in the vacuum, and the photons rearrange in accordance to how our DNA is vibrating, the frequencies that we're emanating, putting out. And so what it shows us is that we can move and shape shift our reality. Now, we have to hone our skills and we have to learn a greater degree of patience and presence and sit down because we've developed a very quick fix, give it to me now, inability to focus and concentrate humanity. That's what's come of it. That's what's come of us. And so in order to be masterful in this way, we need to learn some skills that allow us to really enter into this realm where you can have such an influence and have it be sustainable. So one of the things that I do is I teach people how to work with bioenergetics. You asked about bioenergetics, and that is, there's an energy flow that goes through our body. This is easier. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I use this when I'm teaching some of my online courses. So there's an energy flow that comes through the human system, and actually the energy is building the human system. But that's a whole nother conversation. So we see the energy comes down through the body, hits the earth, turns, rises up through the body and circles around, and it shoots up and out and around, and then it gets drawn back up at the base of the spine, and it constantly recycles and recycles. So bioenergetics means body energy, how the body energy flows, okay? So this flow has to be in place for us to be healthy and strong and self-healing and creative and able to manifest and able to have transcendental experiences, etc. So here's how most people are functioning, okay? Energy comes down through the body, hits the earth, turns, rises up. And because we're shut down in certain ways, or we're underdeveloped in certain ways, this energy that rises has to go around the areas that we've shut down. So like, for instance, if someone was ever going for it and really trying to do their best and do their very shine, and they got slammed, they just got slam dunked. And what the subconscious does in a moment like that is basically says, okay, I'm never going to do that again because that turned out terrible. So I shut down an aspect of my rootedness, my groundedness. Or maybe somebody is really loving someone and going to express it for the first time, and they're making themselves vulnerable, and they're out there in the world just like, oh my God, I love you so much. Here's my testament to my love for you. And the person says, that's great. I don't feel the same way. Boom, they get crashed as well. So they shut down a part of their consciousness that is correlating to a different part of their energy system, different layers of energy, different levels of consciousness. It's all inside the human system. And so here's the bottom line is, this rising energy now can't rise in a symmetrical, harmonized way. It now instead rises in this wobbling sort of way. And that wobble creates a distortion in the bioenergetic field, the biofield. Maybe you've heard the terms the biofield. It's a field of energy that surrounds the body. It's not just emitted from the body. It actually created the body in the developing embryo in the womb. So we have to get into a different understanding of what energy medicine really could be if we really want to capitalize on everything it has to offer. Most people think I'm a physical body and I'm going to get this energy moving better through my body so I can be stronger and I can heal stuff and I'll be better for that. And that's all true. And it's only a portion of what we could be doing while we're still also learning about energy medicine. So here's what I want us to realize is that with this wobble, this person is standing here now in a distorted field. See how this one's distorted instead of, being just perfectly symmetrical. This person looks out through this distorted field and they see a distorted reality. They see one that doesn't care, one that doesn't matter, one that they don't matter in. They see themselves as invisible. They see themselves as needing to hold on to their stories and their grudges in order to feel strong or to keep themselves together in some way. And it just leads to a horrible life, basically. And so we're here to move from this to this. And the good news is we can, it can transfer right back into its perfected template, this flow of energy. And it has to do with what we do deep in this core, because that's what's routing how this energy moves through our system. So that happens through things like forgiveness and through going for it again and for allowing ourselves to experience ourselves as the truly unbounded version of life that we could be, and to do so in a realistic, heartfelt way, not to just, pie in the sky, I'm dreaming about this and I'm going to be this and that. That's good. But until those vibrational frequencies of those exalted ideas are embodied, anchored in the body, until that happens, we can't really change the field and the flow of the bioenergetics in a consistent fashion. So once this pattern is established, if we don't do something to change what's causing the pattern will cause us to continue to believe that we're unworthy, or that we're not capable, or that we're not enough, or it's too late, or it's too early, or what have you. So that's a big, long answer, but hopefully just to tie some things together for us. So the bottom line is we have to change the field. And to change the field, because the field is constantly creating that environment that we mentioned epigenetics earlier, and that's those little antennas on the surface of our cells that are picking up on information. And that tells the cell that information then goes inside the cell and says, hey, we're in an emergency situation. You need to produce some adrenaline. We need adrenaline in the system. Go, go, go. And so we do. But we're not designed to be in adrenaline producing states for 24/7 for days and weeks and months and years. We exhaust, and then the thyroid and the adrenals are all out of whack. And there's no mystery to what happens when we break down. We just want to time out. Let's get back to the engine of the train instead of constantly worrying about what's happening at the caboose. The caboose, the symptoms that we have, exist only because of how we're driving the train. And so the whole idea is we need to come into the deep core of our system. And the only way in is through a loving disposition, which is why I love why you started today the way that you did. It's without that, it's just a bunch of information. Without that, everything I just said is like a great theory, but people's lives don't change until we get there. So I spend the majority of my time teaching people actually how to do that part. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so if you're listening, we're doing this thing where you're going into the heart for 30 days and you're going to feel the elevated emotions of appreciation, gratitude, bliss, joy, go on, care, compassion. I'm just curious, emotions, how does that play into this whole equation that you just talked about?
Yeah. So emotions as we know them are the byproduct of different thoughts that we think and dispositions that we maintain. If I had some early life experiences that put me into a feeling of shame or feeling of fear or inadequacy in some way, then I now kind of like a baby chick models whoever it sees when it hatches, like within the first hours, whatever. If it sees a mother hen, it models after, imprints to the mother hen. If it sees a barn dog, it imprints to the dog. And so our cells do the same thing. They imprint to the leader. And so when we experience something with emotion early on in life, it intensifies that vibrational frequency and imprints it as part of our identity. Now, it can be rewritten, but it has to be rewritten on a conscious level because we kind of become subconscious with that imprinting and we move on. And so we drive our lives with our conscious mind, but that subconscious emotion, unresolved emotion, is still in there driving the train, still driving the bus, if you will. So emotions are intensifiers and magnifiers. When we set out to do something and we mean it with all our heart, it's going to do something more than if we just set out to do something. If we're emotional about our why in life, like why I'm doing this, it's because I want to make a way for my wife and my kids, or I want to, I want to heal something between my sister and I. There's a real emotional why. If there's a why connected to it, then the synapses that we are intending to forge, they have sticking power when there is emotion associated with it. So that's the role of emotion. The valuable role of emotion could be that. The problem is most of humanity is being driven by their field, and they are stuck in a pattern where that emotion of shame or of guilt or of inadequacy that was established early on is now imprinted because of something that happened in here. It's imprinted in creating a field, an expression of the field that keeps reverberating it and sending that message to those little antennas on the cell every day saying, you're still based in shame. You're still based in shame. You're still based in guilt. You're still based in agitation. And so that person will actually unconsciously seek out situations where they get to feel shame again. They don't even know they're doing it, but they will recreate a shameful type experience or a guilt-laden type of possible reaction to something. They'll find themselves in situations that agitate them because they identify with being agitated. So it's very fascinating. Now, what I've even seen people do is, so then they're like, okay, time out. I don't want to be agitated all the time. Teach me how to meditate. So they learn to meditate, but and then they get into these expansive states and they feel blissful and wonderful. And then they don't want to go to work anymore because it's not as blissful and wonderful as this state is. And they don't really want to address that thing with their partner because, I'm just wonderful and it's all blissful. And, I'm sure you'll change if I just stay in my bliss. And, all sorts of things like that happen. And then they somehow stumble into, and it's because they're attracting this kind of situation to themselves that we were just discussing. They'll find themselves agitated and angry about something that happened. Boom. And what happens is a major contraction occurs in the midst of all this blissful expansiveness. They'll get agitated. And all of a sudden they feel super lucid. They're like super clear. And they want to address these things with their partner. And they want not just as a reaction to being angry, but here's my point. The angry moment or the frustrated moment anchored them. It pulled them into their core. It was a collapsing of this blissful, expansive state. But in that collapsing, what happens is we bring that blissful state with us, especially after we learn how to do this. We bring that blissful state with us into our body. And when it's in our body, now it has an opportunity to change some of these things, some of these blockages or gaps in the flow. And when that happens, I become this expanded person that is anchored in my body now and available to deal with the realities of my relationships and my work and so forth. So it's kind of a super roundabout way of anchoring ourselves in higher states of consciousness. But that's kind of what humanity defaults to until we learn how to do it consciously and intentionally so that it doesn't require an argument to get us like back in our bodies. And that shot of adrenaline that we became dependent upon now doesn't have to exist in order for us to be lucid and clear and ready to roll in anything available, not having to defend ourselves or control our environment in order to feel safe. So all of that is quantum science and bioenergetics and how it flows. And our job is to get really good at allowing that flow to flow and to harness it and hone it into its perfected state so that our bodies can function the way they were designed to function instead of being stuck in fight or flight all the time. That picture, this is a picture of what fight or flight looks like in the energy system. It looks like that. Relaxed, filtering, cleansing, healing, creative genius, all that good stuff happens in this kind of a state. So that's what we're after. And it's, the beautiful thing is it's possible. In fact, I think it's why we come. We come to this planet to learn how to do what we're talking about. Because when we're not at this planet, we are already that expanded, blissful, amazing state. But we're diving into the third dimension to see, it's like a game. It's like, okay, I'm going in, I'll see you there. Let's see if we can help each other, figure it out. And so we can get really great at being this beautiful, amazing, creative, miraculous, magnificent presence on the planet. And know the truth of who we are while we're here, instead of having to come here, survive, and then, wait one day to leave to experience those blissful states of heaven. It's like, it's supposed to be right here, right now, all the time. So that's my 10 cents on it.
Can you talk about the concept of energy codes?
You bet. Okay. So I'll try to keep it brief. So the energy codes are a series of practices that we can do that teach us how to do what I was just talking about, that teach us how to build a bridge over this gap, right through it, to cut through it instead of going around it, to build circuitry, to turn on circuitry that is there inherently by divine design, sitting there waiting for us to turn it on. And so the energy codes are ways for us to build a superhighway between these three brains in our body, the brain in our gut, which is that whole epigenetics. Billions of bits of information are bombarding us at the cellular level every millisecond. We're constantly immersed in creative soup. We are in the answer. We are the answer walking around and we don't even know it. And all of that is arriving at our gut. And that's why you asked about gut feelings earlier. That's why listening to the gut and developing an ability to do so is so important, because billions of bits of information are arriving here at this deep core cellular level. Those billions of bits of information don't go straight to our head. They go to our gut. And then they get filtered through this chakra system, which is different levels of consciousness. These levels of consciousness that are equating to our knowingness, that we're made of this energy, our ability to remain that while we're engaging with others without losing a sense of self, our ability to fuel that with the power of the universe and the quantum field, and our willingness to allow love to be more important than we've ever let it be before. Because it has such a healing quality to it. It magnetizes everything and pulls it together and congeals things. And then our ability to action that and to be courageous enough to step into action on what we truly feel is right and aligned for us, to have the capacity to do that without it, just dispersing and wobbling and splatting. And so then it rises up through our primitive brain and up into these higher brain centers where the pineal gets to receive this information that's been rising from the brain in your gut, passing through the brain in your heart, which we know the cells of the heart, generate neurotransmitters as well. It is a whole being in and of itself. And to connect that with this perceiving centers up here in these high brain centers, where we're now translating this cosmic intelligence, this universal intelligence, into the gut, and let it rise, give it heart and meaning, let it rise up into images and ideas and thoughts and genius, breaking through patterns of what we were taught by people who didn't have any idea what we're talking about, which developed our reality until it doesn't, until we transcend that reality into the one we're speaking about now. And so those three brains get to be connected through practices that I teach people with the energy codes. So if you ever are in a situation where, just to give you a brief example of how the energy codes works, just some foundational practices. If you're in a conversation with someone and someone says something to you that, you get a knot in your stomach, it means something differently than if you get a lump in your throat. It means something different. And it means something even different still if you get heaviness in your chest or tightness in your chest. They're different kinds of messages. They're trying to show us different aspects of this system that are blocked or the gaps still exist. So, for instance, we see this right here. When this energy comes around this and hits that, and it can't get through, it has to turn and go around it. When it hits that, you feel it like a knot in your stomach. When you feel a knot in your stomach, that's why. It's because the energy is colliding right there, and it's not integrating into that part of your own consciousness. Instead, it's going around it. And so if you're in a situation and you're like, oh man, every time I'm around this person, I get this thing, and my gut upsets my stomach. And, there are lots of mental and emotional reasons that we've equated with that. But I want people to understand there's a bioenergetic reason also. And all of the three, the mind, the emotion, and the bioenergy flow, they have to work together if we want to change that in any sort of appreciable way and have it be sustainably changeable. So what we do with the energy codes is we then go to where that knot is and we squeeze it back. We hug it back. So remember when I said, and I'll say why, but remember when I said, this expanded person who's meditating and having such a great time and all that, and then something happens that aggravates them or agitates them, and boom, it collapses everything. That collapsing is a universal principle. It has to. Every time we expand, we have to contract. Every time we expand, we have to anchor what we expanded into. And that's how we have to look at it. We're expanding into a new reality, and we have to anchor that in our consciousness so that we can then step up on top of that and expand from there. And so the universe is pulsating like this. Boom. Boom. Okay. And every time in all of the manifest reality, it's expanding. So it goes like this. It expands and then it anchors, and then it expands and then it anchors. and then it expands, and then it anchors, and then it expands, and then it anchors. And we have to do that too, because that's what's happening in our reality. So that's why the upset feels good to someone, even though they don't want to get upset. They feel strong. They feel their power, right? They feel lucid and I'm here. Don't mess with me. I'll tell them. It's that kind of thing. But there's something bigger going on there. We're evolving, and it's at a very slow pace. So with the energy codes, what I want people to do is evolve a little bit more quickly, evolve like consciously and intentionally every day in a measurable and appreciable way. So when you feel that knot in your gut, what's trying to happen is an anchoring that is trying to get you to see where in your body your circuits aren't flowing freely, and you're duping yourself every day that you step around it. So we take an antacid to get rid of the stomach issue, or we avoid that person because we get this stomach upset. And it's like, no, we're totally missing the boat. We're missing the point. So what we want to do is get in tandem with what's trying to happen. There's a communication that's trying to set this whole body system, this whole body-mind system free. It's trying to set us free so that we can heal and then we can get on with it. Instead of just trying to spend our lives healing, we're supposed to be being these massively creative, beings, presences on the planet that are going into old ways of doing work and changing it up, and old ways of doing relationship and changing it up, and old ways of doing everything and evolving it, right? So we don't have the power to do that when we're wasting all our energy just trying to get by. So what we're doing with the energy codes is teaching you how to build bridges through those gaps. So for instance, if we hug back the area that's tight, and then we start taking what I call is a central channel breath here, up and down this channel. So we're like squeezing or hugging one of these areas. And we're basically saying, I'm not going to let you disperse me again. I'm going to stay right here in the midst of this situation because it's here for me. It keeps happening. So there must be a reason it keeps happening in my life. And I teach people to come from. Everything is supporting your awakening. Everything that happens in your life, it's in your favor. It's in your favor for you to wake up to a greater version of who you are. There are no exceptions to that. So there are no bad things that happen. So even if you don't like what's happening, if you let it disperse you, then you weaken your system. If you keep yourself gathered and quickened in those real time moments, you can start to carve a pathway through this channel and allow for less wobble and a correction of that distorted energy field so that it's flowing again the way that it's supposed to be. So are you tracking with me so far? Okay. Yeah. So with the energy codes, first we teach people to anchor in their channel, first and foremost, so that they're not getting dispersed and too expanded, but that they expand and then they know how to anchor so that they can expand again and then anchor it and expand even more and anchor it. And so that's the first thing that we do. And then the second thing is we build the circuits when something is upsetting us. We realize there's a reason for this tightness. So I'm going to hug. It's as if the system is trying to show me, quicken right here. Gather yourself right here. You keep going around this. And if you'll just stay right here, we can carve you straight through this. If you'll just have faith, if you'll just, believe in yourself enough. And I teach people how to believe in themselves, not mentally, but physiologically, by anchoring in this channel, by anchoring in this central channel. So we kind of start putting all those types of things together. And the next thing you know, people are building a stable system that is clear, that is able to walk into their past and unpack it, see it differently, see how it served them. They're able to walk into their future and absolutely know that it's their destiny, that it's not some pie in the sky dream, and that they're building the circuitry to be able to align their system, to raise their vibration, to match their dreams and their desires and so forth. We're supposed to be able to manifest those things that we want, those things that we want to become, or those things that we want to be able to experience in life. They're meant to be. This is a playground. And if those things aren't unfolding for someone, it's a circuitry issue. It's not bad luck. It's not that you were born without everything it takes to achieve it. It's a circuitry issue. And there's too much of a wobble and a distortion in the field. So that's what we're doing with the energy codes, is just teaching people how to build that circuitry, build bridges, carve pathways through walls, build bridges across gaps, those kinds of things in the energy system itself, in the flow of their biofield. So, okay, how was that?
That's great.
This is
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We're definitely
I
going
love
to be taking all the courses you have.
We're your new biggest
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah, we'll be following you around. So,
Awesome. We'd love to have you.
question that I have, and it's making me think about like my life journey. And, like say 8 years ago, I was addicted to numbing myself with alcohol for anything I didn't want to feel. And then I got sober from alcohol. And then I started doing some other stuff, like, even just coffee, basically. And I can just think about times where I've expanded and then contracted, maybe frustrated, where I'm on coffee. We'll just use coffee as an example.
Yeah.
And then the next day, say I'm not on coffee. And my ability to respond differently off the coffee is much better than on the coffee. So I'm curious what substances are actually doing to our energy expanding and contraction and the wobble.
Yeah. So, this is such a great question. So when people use substances to avoid feeling what they're feeling, here's what has happened. They've expanded in their consciousness, their sensory, they're super sensing, they can feel all sorts of stuff. It's overwhelming to their system because they haven't been taught how to, in an organized fashion, process that information because they're not in their body. They're living in their heads, not in their whole body. The body acts as a filtering mechanism that allows all those amazing and immense amounts of stimuli that are coming at us all the time to be organized and categorized into usable energy. But until we learn how to do that or learn the significance of living in the body versus just living in our heads, we can't filter it. We can't translate it. So we take something to numb it out. It's because it's just too much, man. It's just too much. And while we're under the influence of that stuff, we feel a reprieve. And so the next day we want that reprieve again, and we want it again and again. And that's what becomes the addiction. And so first things first, we have to teach people to come out of their heads and learn to get down in their body. And so I teach people how to anchor themselves at the root of the spine and just below the heart chakra, the heart center area, and inside the manifesting area, just behind the primitive brain and down into our throats, and then also up inside the third eye area where we're perceiving all this stuff, whether we are aware of it or not, that causes us to be overwhelmed when we're not anchored in our body. But if we're living all the way down and anchored in the body, the body acts as a filtering mechanism so that all that input isn't overwhelming. It isn't supposed to be overwhelming. It's supposed to be inspiring. And so here's what happens. If you drink coffee on a given day because it's there and you drink it and whatever, it has a contractive capacity to us. That's why people are like, oh, I got to have my coffee so I can be like sharp. And there's a moment where that's true. And then afterward, it starts to compress you and contract you so much that you don't have access to the expansive component anymore. So then you're like, I think I'm going to stop coffee for a little bit and just see if I'm okay, or see if I can do a cleanse, detox myself, see if I can handle a day without coffee, take it on. And so then when we take the coffee away, it's now less contractive, but we've been so contracted that expansiveness feels like, oh my God, I'm so here. I'm so present. I feel so good. If I don't have a headache because of withdrawal from the caffeine, that person, there's a window right there where a person can have an experience of like, wow, this is better than I am when I'm just running all the time on all that stimulation. That's a false stimulation. I can actually get in touch with my true stimulation. And that true stimulation is there are billions of bits of information that are pouring into us every millisecond from everywhere in a spherical fashion. And inside of that, that's where the epigenetics and everything, takes place. And we can now access greater amounts of universal intelligence. The universal mind becomes our own mind. So when we take substances away, even if it's only for cleansing periods of time, and it's important, I think, when people are really into their whatever it is, it's easier to work with it if somebody just devotes themselves to, okay, for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to do this thing. It's just 3 weeks. And so on the third week in one day, I can go back to my coffee or go back to whatever if I want to. And if we can hang for 21 days, the body will establish a new baseline. And then when we go back to whatever, we don't want it as much. We can do it, for pleasure instead of every day have to have it kind of thing. Or we just, I don't really want it at all. And that can happen after we give the system a chance to chemically recalibrate. Our system chemically works in 3, 7, and 21 day cycles. So people will say you can create a new habit in 28 days and that kind of thing, but the chemistry is there at the 21st day. Because of how the system runs in its cycles. And it's really the psyche that needs that extra week to land something, to change a new habit and that kind of thing. That's why the 28-day thing is really good for people to change habits and change, their disposition. But if we hurt ourselves, or we're trying to change something, or we're trying to heal something, or if somebody would just say, I'm going to take 3 days and not do coffee for just 3 days, it's better than just going 1 day without coffee. You follow? And then if they can go 7 days, that's even better. And if they can go 21 days, even better. But I find it helpful for people to try to change those kinds of patterns that we're locked into emotionally and chemically addicted. If we just take it incrementally and allow the subconscious to build some confidence that I can get through this, and I'm still here. I'm still okay. I don't have to have it every single day. If that's helpful.
Very helpful.
I'm thinking about, in your experience, how important is the physical versus the energy work? In other words, like with the gut, some people just physically do not have the right bacteria in their gut that might make things hard. So in your practice, do you see it as an important thing that there's certain vitamins or probiotics or on the physical level so that you have the capacity? Or do you think everything can be accomplished with energy work?
Beautiful. So great question. And I think that we're best if we approach it from both directions, right? So it's a continuum. And the physical, even bacteria, is energetic. It's all energy. The physical world is energy, just compressed into different shapes and actions and vibrational frequencies, et cetera, including bacteria, including normal flora in the gut, including gut function, including the health and the vitality of the gut lining, including the emotions that affect that gut lining, including the thoughts that create the emotions that affect that gut lining, including the disposition and the whole invisible come from that generates the thoughts, that generates the emotions, that generates the impact on the gut lining, that influences the normal flora in the gut, that influences the health and the vitality of the whole system, and creating an environment where a bacteria that doesn't belong there could even survive. You follow? It's all connected. There's no disconnect. So the ideal thing when someone's wanting to shift something along those lines is to approach it from both ends of the continuum, I think, because here we are, the fact that the wrong bacteria are in there creating and sloughing off all sorts of other chemistries that now make it even harder for the gut to catch up, to get ahead of the game. That has to stop. And so anything that we can do in terms of supplementation and so forth to help establish a normal flora, probiotics, et cetera, cleanses, colon cleanses, all of that, very, very helpful. But if we don't change it at this end of the spectrum, we're just going to have to keep doing those flushes and cleanses and, colonics and all these things that people do to try to establish a healthier gut flora and function. Because it all starts way down here. And that's what I love about having been raised where I was, is that the come from is it all starts with consciousness. It all starts with, who are you? Who do you think yourself to be? So the worrier is going to end up with a colon problem. They're going to, because they're constantly activating, overstimulating the sympathetic nervous system. And then the parasympathetic nervous system gets compromised as well, because the sympathetics just exhaust. And now the system is just spinning out of control. And so we have to approach it from both directions. And one of the things that I do down here on this end of the spectrum with people also is teach them how to remove subconscious unresolved emotion, to resolve it, to connect the dots on unresolved subconscious happenings, that, things that we went through when we're 4 years old and 7 years old and 15 and 27 and what have you. Those things that were unresolved, they get shoved underneath the level of consciousness and into the body. And that vibration in the body is setting the digestive system up, just as an example, for failure. Because if there's a bear in the room with us, we're not supposed to be digesting lunch. We're supposed to be sending all of our energy to fight or flight, to fight the bear or run from the bear. So the signals inside the system are shut down digestion. And if we're locked in that position because too many bears happened all at once in the history in our background, and this trap door between our conscious and our subconscious slams shut, and the last message that got through was, there's 10 bears in the room with you. So that person's not going to relax, because the message that's firing inside the system underneath the level of consciousness is saying, run for your life, run for your life. So that person then gets hungry, goes to eat dinner, eats dinner, and it's not being properly digested, because there's another message in there that's saying, we need that energy that you're going to use on digestion. We need this for the bear. We need this for the bear. We need this for the bear. And I'll let you know when the bear is gone. But it never gets the message that the bear is gone, because the trap door slams shut between two areas of the brain, the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And so we don't have any idea those bears have been gone for weeks, months, years, decades. And so our system is now exhausting because it's trying to fight bears and digest lunch and dinner and so forth. So we have to address it from both ends. So I teach people how to identify what are those subconscious interferences, and how do we remedy it? How do we further the process? How do we complete the loop and allow them to be completely metabolized so that it's a non-issue, so the trapdoor can open again, so that we can go on vacation and actually relax and not, or we can watch a movie without falling asleep. We can be there, be present. But oftentimes the moment somebody sits down to relax, they're actually, they're out within minutes because they're exhausted, but they've been pushing, all their lives so they can make things happen. And it's not how we're supposed to be operating, but it's the way most people are operating. So hopefully that's helpful.
This has been such a wonderful interview, and I hope we can do this again. I know there's so many people listening that are like, everyone listening is going to love your stuff, and they're going to want to, find you and stuff like that. But your team said, what I'm thinking about is there might be people listening that this seems so far away to, they might be really struggling. And your team said that you generously offered a gift for everybody to kind of start out on this journey. So I'd love if you just kind of spoke on that a little bit.
Oh, well, absolutely. We are always wanting people to get it, right? We're wanting people to embody what we're talking about. And so I know that I've been like bombarding with a lot of information, but even if you didn't understand everything that's been said, you can feel what's been being communicated. And it's very important that you just allow yourself to absorb it, because there's a transmission that happens when we start putting this many pieces together, boom, and dropping it in. So please keep that in mind, everyone. And then we also are coming along with this interview with a gift for you that is Activate the Healer. And if you go to drsuemorter.com/activate the healer, you can get a meditation that allows you to feel into all the things that I'm speaking about. Now, I also teach a course, and I have one coming up that is an amazing opportunity for people to participate in. It's called Heal Yourself, Heal Your Life. And you can check out on our website how to plug into that. We have people from 115 countries coming together from around the world. And it's an online program that allows you to plug in and leverage the energy of everyone working together. So that would be something that I would also invite people to check out.
Beautiful. We've provided those links in the description below, and we're going to check that out for sure.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you so much. This was so
My gosh.
understandable and clear.
Yeah, mind blowing.
It was like the perfect thing that I feel like we needed right now.
So applicable.
So thank you for being you.
Awesome.
Here with us.
Is there any other way we can support you?
Oh my, it's just, it's a joy to be here with you and to be able to share and put the pieces together for people. I thank you for what you're doing to bring people together like this. It is definitely time for us to understand more about our power to heal and our power to truly transmute everything in our lives, to have it serve us and have it expand us and expand our life experience in beautiful ways. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for coming with us today. And we're sending love to everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Beautiful. Bye-bye for now.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You probably know me as a co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series and a featured teacher in the book of the movie The Secret. And I want to invite you to a very special and important event called Love Unleashed, which is being produced by the Heart Math Institute on May 16th and 19th, where I'll be presenting along with Deborah Rosman, Howard Martin, Gregg Braden, and Lynn McTaggart, and a whole host of other people. And I'll be doing a presentation called Love is the Answer, where I'll be guiding you on how to overcome some of the obstacles to the full expression of love, such as fear and the unconscious limiting beliefs that we have, and how to reconnect with the essence of your soul, which is love. I look forward to seeing you there.